At the end of our Torah portion, on the end of our Torah portion, it talks about the beginning, of course, is talking about the spies that they sent in, and then afterwards it talks about what's called the Mesachim, the wine libations. They had to pour out wine in a certain place on the altar with every sacrifice. And then after that, it talks about this interesting thing, this interesting subject about the Mekoshesh Eitzim, that they found a person in the desert that was gathering up or pulling out whatever wood from the ground, gathering together. Anyways, he was defiling Shabbat. And then in the end, it has the thing about tzitzit, the commandment of tzitzit. All this all together is stressing the importance of this physical world in Judaism. How tremendously important this world is. And the reason the Jews had to come to the land of Israel, it was so very important that they had this particular land, even though the God is everywhere. But the land of Israel is special because here is where most of the commandments can be done, if not all the commandments. And here the Holy Temple is built, and etc. So that's the idea of the Jewish people being in the land of Israel. But we see that, interestingly enough, that Moses did not enter in the land of Israel. And because of the occurrence that happened in this week's Torah portion, none of the Jews entered the land of Israel, except for Yoshua and Kalev. They didn't go in. So who did go in? After 38 years of wandering around in the desert, Joshua went in. So it says that Joshua sent in also spies, seemingly to fix up the mistake that Moses did. So we're learning about that in the Sikha, but let's learn about it from another angle. And that's the angle of the first Rebbe of Chabad. Let's see, right here. Ready? Let's go. Vayishlach Yoshua min Shittim. Yoshua sent from a place called from Shittim 2 spies. Meraglim Cheresh, quiet, silent, hidden spies. Lemor, and he said to them, L'chu ra'u et eretz vet Jericho. Go and see the land and Jericho. And in fact, all they saw was Jericho. Jericho. V'hinei, behold, bevadai lo asa Yoshua midato. It doesn't really say in the Haftarah. This is right in the beginning of the book of Joshua. So the Rebbe says we have to conclude that Joshua did not make the same mistake as Moses did, and he sent the spies on his own. It has to be that God commanded him. In the scouts that Moses sent out, because see if it says shalach lacha. It says, God says, send for you. In other words, you send. If you want to, send. Homer Azam, the rabbi, say, l'datcha. This is your call, Moshe. This is your decision. Ani eini mitzav l'cha. I'm not commanding you. Let's understand exactly what is this as far as we're concerned. Now, why is this important to us? Now, the whole Torah, everything in the Torah is Torah. Torah means teaching, hora'ah, everything. So it's coming to teach us something, not just a lesson, a religious lesson, that also, but it's coming to teach us something about life, something very, very essential and important about life and our values and our priorities in life and our deeds and our speech and our thought. Is there such a thing as proper speech, proper thought, proper attitude? Is there such a thing? Or is it just everybody, whatever works? Whatever works is good. Is that the measure? Or maybe there's absolute good speech and absolute good And it could be that absolute good speech and thought, and it changes according to every situation. But all those situations are also being put in front of us by God to see if we utilize these principles of the Torah under different conditions. Let's see. Let's understand this. Shabakol Eretz Israel, then in all of Israel, lo tziva Hashem Yisbarech, God did not command Lishloach to send. Rak Meraglim. It didn't send Rak B'Yericho. He said that they should go to only Jericho. What does it say? He says, see the land and Jericho. What does it mean, see the land and Jericho? See the land. Right? That's good enough. What does he have to throw Jericho in there? Because all he sent was just to Jericho. That's all, only to Jericho. This was like the lock, the entrance way to the land of Israel. Like it says, Jericho Segura Masugeret. It was a city that had a big wall around it, and all these other nations were there. And all the different nations that were in Israel were living in Jericho. Like it says, Achiti, Amori, all these different nations, they were all, I guess they had their own sections, whatever, in Jericho. Called Bala Jericho. All the people in Jericho were from these different nations. So Jericho was like the cosmopolitan town of Israel. So if so, Jericho, this was a small Israel. Everything in Israel was in a miniature in Jericho. A representative type of all the different people and everything. Well, having to understand this, what was so special about Jericho, and why did they have to conquer Jericho especially? What does it mean that Jericho, the word Jericho also means to have a fragrant smell, a smell. We'll see what this means. How is it B'chol Yisrael? How is it in every single Jew? How can this be found in every single Jew? The Torah is given to the Jewish people. It's an eternal lesson for every single Jew. Where is the Jericho inside of me and you? And why do we have to have spies there? Right? Everything that says in the Torah is inside of me also. So there must be inside of me, there is a Jericho, and it must be that I have to send spies there. Israel and the rest of the land of Israel, in other words, me, I don't have to send spies. All I have to worry about is this Jericho thing inside of me. And that's what I have to spy out. If I can ascertain what's going on in Jericho and I can fix that up, then that fixes me up totally. What does that mean? What does it mean as far as I'm concerned? It says, Avram Zakin Bo B'Yamim. Okay, now we're going to start to explain. It says that Abraham was old, coming in days. Now, Abraham, he was the first Jew, and in a lot of ways, he was the seed of the Jewish people. Everything was contained in Abraham. Well, Perish Zohar, the Zohar explains, Zohar is a Kabbalistic book, right? Shenislabish b'yamim, that Abraham clothed himself in the days. What does it mean? Sheyamim hem bechinat levushim, that the days were garments for him. The nitan lenashama, that were given to the soul. Now, you've probably figured out by now that people die, right? Not only that, I mean, probably you've figured out that everybody dies. So everybody's only here for a certain amount of time. Some people are here for longer, some people are shorter. After a person's dead, so that's it. He's dead. He goes to heaven, whatever he does, but he's not in the world anymore. He's not here in the world. Maybe he his effects come, he appears to people in dreams, maybe who knows what. But the fact of the matter is he can't do any more commandments. He can't serve God. She. So a person has only a certain limited amount of days to live in the world. That's what God did. Right? If Adam wouldn't have eaten from the tree, it wouldn't be that way. Every day would be eternal. Right? Every day would be an amazing gift from God, and we would never get tired of it. People would never get old. That's what it would be. But it's not that way. Now, why did God give us a certain amount of days? So it says, well, if you look at the Torah, you'll see that there's a lot of commandments that depend on time. A lot of commandments depend on time. And even those commandments that don't depend on time, like for instance, loving God and fearing God, that you have to do all the time, right? Believing in God. But nevertheless, there's only a certain amount of time in the day that you can do this. I mean, if you stay up all the time, you stay up the maximum time that you can love God every day is 24 hours. That's it. It says every single day there are commandments. Kol echad, and each human being, each Jew, especially nitan lo shnei chayav, is given the years of his life. Kafi mash tzorech lilavoshin. How many garments he needs? Like it says, Yom Yatzru, that God gives everybody, he forms a certain number of days. Hainu al yedei Torah v'mitzvahs, by means of the Torah and the commandments that a person does. We call Yom Shebitul Torah, and every day that a person does not learn the Torah, or he does not do a commandment, chaser mi'aneshama, there's lacking from his soul a garment. Kefi erech bitulo, according to how and why he didn't do the commandments. It was by accident, if it was on purpose, it was through ignorance. Okay, so that's the garments. That's why God put Jews in the world. That's why he put them in the world. And there's to have these garments. And these garments, what are these garments? These garments are, it's like sunglasses. You know, if you have sunglasses, so you can look at the sun. The same thing, these garments are the ability to draw godliness into the world. Remember, we learned previously about the beard of Aaron, that the beard of Aaron, we said that's the commandments. That the oil that comes down the beard of Aaron, it's in Psalm 133, not 123, like I said about 15 times, it's 133. To understand a levushin, the lama tzarichim, and neshama levushin, why does the soul even have to have these garments? You know, let me look at this one more time so I don't keep making the same mistake. One. That's right, 133. All right, now let's understood. Okay, now we have to remember, right? The Jewish people are here in the world to be a connector between the revelation of the Creator and the Creator himself. In other words, to reveal the Creator of the world in the world. And as we've said so many times, the Creator of the world is creating the world from nothing. From nothing. It's an amazing miracle. The whole world is an incredible miracle. And if the Creator was not creating it, it just wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be here. That's it. It would just be a big nothing. So God is amazingly creating this whole world from absolutely nothing. That, by the way, is one of the reasons, the secrets of the raising of the dead, and why people won't be bored to live forever, because they'll just feel that they're being created brand new. Every second will be brand new, like it was in the Holy Temple. People went to the Holy Temple, and they felt that every second is brand new. It's fresh. But now we don't have that. The way to bring that into the world now is through the commandments. Afterwards, in the raising of the dead, the commandments will have a different function. But that's what the commandments are. The commandments are, if you want to call it, garments or conductors or strainers, like sunglasses, to bring godliness, pure godliness, to reveal pure godliness in the world. And so now here they're compared to garments. The commandments are like garments, and every day has a certain amount of garments that it can. That's what Abraham was filled with garments. In other words, Abraham, every single moment of his life, he did exactly what God wanted. Now you have to remember, of course, that Abraham did not have the actual physical commandments. Abraham just knew that God wanted us to do physical things in the world, and he knew what the spiritual counterpart was, but the Torah had not yet been given. So Abraham did not put on tefillin, and etc. The Inyan Hu, it's like this, we say every day, Nakdishach. We will make you holy, God. This doesn't make any sense. We're saying about God that we make God holy. How can we say we make God holy? God is holy on his own. How is it that we can possibly say that we make God holy? That we make God holy. What does that mean? Same thing we can say we make a blessing. That we bless God. God needs our blessing. But here he's just talking about, right, holy. How does it we make God holy? V'gam, also, lama omrim gimel pamim. What do we say 3 times? Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Hashem tzavos. The mispar zeh davka. So that what we said when there was the vision, right, of Ezekiel, they saw the angels were going Kaddish, 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 and we say Kaddish, Kaddish. It says that the angels, they say that God is holy, holy, holy. They say because we say it. Why? Why do we have to say it 3 times? Why do we have to say it at all? What does it mean to make God holy? Behold, the Torah nitna lanu, but the Torah was given to us in 3 things. They are thought, speech, and action. Shekam or mitzvahs taluyim. There are many commandments which depend on speech. Kama mitzvahs taluyim b'machshava. Many commandments depend on thought alone. Right? To understand, we have to understand godliness. We have to love God. We have to think about God, to meditate about God. Da'at Elokei Avich. There are things which depend on speech, saying Birkat HaMazon, to say Shema Yisrael, you have to say it. And there are commandments which are just deed. You just have to do things. You can talk about it and think about it, write books about it, but it's not the same thing as actually doing it. Putting on tefillin, prime example. Well, at first glance, a person can make a mistake. A person might think that, okay, I can understand that God is revealed in thought and maybe even in speech, but indeed, you might think that the revelation of God's indeed is not shava lebechinas gilui elokus shemidgale bebechinas dibur machshava. Shebechinas ma'isa, that indeed who mitaveh, it's very coarse, mitkashem yoter. Gam bebechinas domim, even in physical world, como kesef and achoshet and ma'isa tzedakah. So you might think that the godliness is revealed in physical things. You might think either maybe it's revealed more or it's revealed less. Maybe you can say, listen, in physical things like the holy temple, so God is revealed a lot. There he is. But in spiritual things, it's not so much. Or you can think the other way around. God is revealed more in spiritual things. You got to be spiritual. Physical, who needs it? Right? That's for simple people. Says the Rebbe, no. The emes enokain, it's not so. Everything is equal to God. First of all, everything in front of God is nothing. God is making the whole world from nothing. So it's really, the whole world is really nothing. We have no way of comprehending this, but that's the fact. There's no difference from God between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. Because everything is like nothing in front of God. The highest and the highest of heavens, with the deepest, with the Kabbalistic secrets by God, is exactly the same thing as a rock in the street or a because God is infinite. It's just as big a miracle for God to create a stone or a piece of dirt or something like that, or an atom, as to create all of the angels, billions of angels that are infinite power there. It's exactly the same. It says that God is holy in the heavens and the earth. What does holy mean? Removed, separate. He's holy. The level of the heavens and the earth are by him. They're equal by him. In simple English, God is not a thing. God is not a thing. God is not a being. If you want to say God does not exist, he creates all existence. The existence of God is infinitely, infinitely, infinitely more real than anything we can possibly imagine. Anything you can possibly imagine. God is separate from him. Even though he enlivens the worlds of Mahava and creates everything, the life goes in a way of going and coming. What does it mean, going and coming? The world is here and it's not here at the same time. Is the world really here? Of course it's here. It says in the Torah, the world is here. You can't steal. You can't damage somebody. So then there is property, right? So things really do exist, right? Wrong, they don't really exist. If they don't exist, then how can I steal something? Why do I get punished? It says, because that's what it says in the Torah. And the fact is that you also don't really exist. Right? You agree with that? No, let's not go too far. I mean, I know I exist. Here I am. Right? So says the Rebbe, okay, first of all, you have to realize that you are a creation. I am a creation. God is creating me, and God wants me to be here. He loves me. That's why he's creating me all the time. It's a big, big miracle. Right? But on the other hand, you have to know that to God, The upper worlds, the highest upper world and the lowest world is exactly equal. It just says in the Torah that this thing is good and that thing is bad. So the drawing down of life from God's holiness, this is made only by the Jewish people. That's the job of the Jews. What can we do? Sounds xenophobic, but I didn't create the world. Right? The Lubavitcher Rebbe, somebody wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and said, Judaism is a very sort of bigoted and it's not xenophobic. Xenophobic is the wrong word. It's chauvinistic. I'm sorry, wrong word. Chauvinistic religion. It's a very sort of what's you superior, the best people. What do you want? The Rebbe said, listen, what can I do? I didn't create the world. Right? That's the way God created the world. But it doesn't mean that we're better than anybody else in the sense that everybody owes us everything. It means that we're better than everybody else in the sense that we have a special job and obligation, like a teacher and the pupils. On one end, the teacher demands respect, but on the other end, the teacher is there only for the pupils, only to teach them. If he doesn't do his job, then he's not a teacher. Same thing, the Jewish people are here in order to bring blessing to the whole world. People have to realize that. The Jewish people, before that, they were chosen. But on the other hand, we are servants to the world. All these blessings can only be brought down to the world by means of the Jews. Right? The Jews are just like a middleman. Like it says, Mika Amcha Yisrael, who are like the Jewish people, Goy Echad Ba'oretz, one nation in the world. What does it mean, one nation in the world? Afilu Ba'oretz, that even in the earth, even in the world, Mitachat Mamshich, and we can draw down one. We are one, a nation of one, the one God. We can reveal the one God in the world. And therefore, Omrim, we say 3 times holy. Holy, holy, holy. Why 3 times? Because the whole job of the Jewish people is to reveal this holiness in the world, to reveal the Creator in the world, even more to reveal the purpose of creation in the world. Why God is creating the world? That everyone will feel important, everyone will feel loved, everyone will feel a partner with the Creator of the universe. But in order to do that, it all depends on us doing the Torah. And what do we say? The Torah is given in 3 aspects: thought, speech, and action. That's why we say 3 times holy. This corresponds to the level of nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Shebakulam, that all of them are garments for the soul. Shetoch lahana, so that they can get pleasure from the ziva shechina. Dahainu likalel be'echad. The Jewish people, the whole job of the Jewish people is to use what's called nefesh, ruach, and neshama. This also corresponds to nefesh is thought, ruach is speech, neshama is action. These are 3 levels of the soul also. Nefesh is more an intellectual aspect, ruach is more emotional, and neshama is more action of the soul. To all of them would be included into God's oneness, which is not the case, she'aruma, which is not the case if the person is naked. If the soul is naked without any garments, that Eina Yochola, it's not able, the Kalel, to be included be'echad in God's oneness. Me'achar, since Shehu Bechinas Nivra, since the soul is a created thing, but call Nivra in a soul, because it's created, Hova v'nifsa, it's there and it goes away. It's the soul, as holy as it is, and you want to call it eternal in some ways, but the fact is it has a beginning, and the soul in a way is going to have an end. Therefore, the soul is limited. It can't really comprehend the Creator. Therefore, the soul has to have garments. And where does the soul get the garments? Machshavat Torah, the thought of the Torah, and commandments. These are the garments of the soul, so that they can unify and receive this level of the oneness of God. And this is so the soul of my master will be bundled in the bundle of life. Et Hashem. What's the bundle of life? God. This is in the Shmuel Aleph. Hainu, come on, Adam, just like a person that's Torah Kasva, just like a person that ties up his money, becheret on a pouch or whatever. So your soul will be bundled in the bundle of life. Shiakifenu, v'yalbishenu, that it will be surrounded and clothed in a garment, v'tzurur, and bundled up in the garment and the bundle of life, the source of life. The kalal be'echad, to be united in the oneness of God. That's the commandments, right? The commandments, it says, by means of thought of the commandments and also speech and deed, as this makes the soul able to receive godliness. It makes the soul able to do its job, namely to bring godliness into this physical world. The soul comes into the body is part of the world. In order for the soul to justify being in the body, so it does Torah and the commandments. Without the body, you can't do Torah and commandments. That's the idea of the speech, thought, and action of the commandments. That's three different types of holiness. Holy, holy, holy. This drawing down of godliness that you draw down into the world through the commandments, through thinking, doing, etc., of the commandments, he bechinas reach. That's this level of smell. Now we're going to get to Jericho. Like it says, it says about the Meshiach that the Meshiach will have the smell of godliness. Some people say that he's going to, also it says that he'll judge by his smell. Other people say he'll be judged by his smell. It says that's how they knew that Bar Kochava, why they thought Bar Kochava was the Meshiach, because he had the smell of the Meshiach. Eventually did something that disqualified him, but at the time he had the qualifications. That says that the Mashiach will also judge by his smell. He'll smell people. Just like smell of a thing, the fragrance. It's not the essence of the thing. It's just something that comes from it. And it's called mirazu. This is called erech anpin. This is called long faces. Anpin means faces, but it also means erech anpin, like long suffering. Arich af. It says that God lengthens his anger. Af, but af also means nose. V'tihilati achatem lach. Chotem also means the nose. Okay, there's a lot of senses. A person has the sense of seeing and hearing and feeling and smelling. Now, smelling, a person just smells a fragrance. There's no physicality there, really. That's also, we see that there's another thing interesting about the smell is that if a person is passed out, so he can't hear and he can't see and he can't feel, can't taste, but he can smell. They put smelling salts and the person wakes up. So we see that somehow or other the power of smell is always awake. So it says that's what the Mashiach is going to sense, that aspect which is always awake, the good in everything. And that the ultimate good of this world is the Torah and the commandments. So when a Jew does the Torah commandments in thought, speech, and action, then it draws down a godliness, a goodness, that's called the smell, reach. And this is going to be connected to Jericho. That's what's inside of us. Like it says in Edra, in one of the Nase, Edra Rabbah, one of the books of the Zohar, the secrets of the Zohar. I pray to the source, the one who smells, the source, and they say the master of the nose. And am begging to the master of this fragrance. Sha'orazu, this ray of godliness, nikra, is called chotem. It's also called the nose of God, so to speak. Hu bechinas reach, this godliness that you draw down by means of learning the Torah and doing the commandments, the godliness that comes, that's called the smell. And God himself, nikra, is called balachotem. He's called the master of the smell, the master of the nose. Because God is the essence and the source of this blessing and holiness which comes down into the world when we do a commandment. A mispashetes that comes out from God. And this godliness which comes down by means of us doing a commandment or learning the Torah, this is greater than any measure in the world. It's greater than the size of the universe, anything physical. And it comes from a very, very high source. The infinite one, blessed be he, that God is infinite. And it can come down below, very much, in a place that is limited. According to this, it's possible to say that therefore it says in Midrash Rabbah in Bamidbar, it says achatem lecha lashon chotem. That chotem, the nose, is also the language of a chotem with a tuf, which means a seal. Como sameni kechotem, like it means put me as a seal on your heart. It says shezeu enyan hamshachas, or drawing down a light of godliness. Chotem, very down below. It's sealed, so to speak. It comes down to a low place. Like it says, the seal of God, right? Like the stamp of God is truth. What does it mean, truth? Truth means something that's doesn't change from the beginning until the end. From the highest level to the lowest level, that's called truth. Right? That's what something is true means, that it's unchanging. True love means unchanging love. It doesn't depend on what the other person does to me or what, etc. That's true love. There's something there that's infinite, and that I appreciate that. That's called chotem. That's the seal. The seal. In other words, it's done in the physical world. That's the idea of called the nose of God, the smell, this fragrance. That what comes down, that which is revealed in the world by means of our Torah and our commandments, because the Torah and the commandments are eternal. It draws from the essence of God. And therefore, nikra erech anpin. Therefore, this level is called erech anpin. It's called long faces or long nose. What does it mean, nose? Arichat da anpin. It means that it's patient, also patient. Patience is called erech af. Shemarich bechinas reach. Namely, it means that God makes, I say, long, infinite, this idea of the smell which is drawn down, the fragrance which is drawn down through Torah and the commandments. This is what's called very long, erech. It comes down into this physical world. Lalbisha neshama bebechinas machshava dibur amaisa of the mitzvahs, namely to clothe the soul in thought, speech, physical thought, physical speech, physical action of the commandments and the Torah. And this somehow or other is a magic combination that draws down from the essence of God into the world. And this drawing of the essence of God into the world that's caused by our thought, speech, and action in the actual commandments, that's called fragrance, reach. And that's why God, strangely enough, is called the master of fragrance. He's called the master of the nose. These garments, by means of yomim. This comes by means of the days. What do we say? Abraham, it says he was full of days. There are 365 days in the year, and they are 365 hamshachot, drawing of God, the blessings of God, like blood vessels. Like it says, there's 365 blood vessels in the body. I've never seen this enumerated exactly where they are. I've also never seen enumerated what it says, the 248 limbs, exactly what they are. It's not the bones like it's in Mishnayot and Oelot. It's not something else, but nevertheless, it says these are the 365 blood vessels. That corresponds to the 365 prohibitions. Shadam v'achayot hayotzim alev, that blood and the life force which comes from the heart goes to all the limbs. It has to be in a very, very limited way. That's why these 365 negative commandments correspond to the 365 blood vessels in the body. Maybe just the arteries. And this is drawn through the blood vessels. These are what's called severity. First of all, they draw blood, which blood itself is warm and it's red. That shows on severity, but also because it's very, very limited. It has to be limited a certain path. If there's, God forbid, a hole in one of the holes, it's a rupture of a vein. It's terrible. Therefore, it has to be, that's what the importance of the negative commandments, to draw godliness down into the world in a very, the defined way. And therefore, it's drawn down through these blood vessels. This is what's called God's severity, his limitation, his definition. Therefore, it's the same thing with a person. A person has to have power, strength, how to define himself. He has to control his what's called sitra achra in these three levels. Control your ego. That's the way God made the world. What do you want? That's the way he created the world. He created the world that we have urges. He created the world that we have nature. That's the way God made the world. And the world, we are on a microcosm of the whole world. Just like in the world, there is all sorts of urges. There's destructive forces and positive forces, as we also have within us forces which are egotistical, forces which are godly, night and day. Therefore, we have to control ourselves in these three things: thought, speech, and action. Machshava, dibur, and maisa, b'avodas Hashem levad. We also have to control ourselves in thought, speech, and action. And this is what's going to bring this. Now we're going to get to this thing about Jerico, to check out Jerico. Klala de Milsa, the generality, the general principle that we're dealing with over here. She yasim adam machshavto. A person should take it to heart, in his mind, litbonan, to think. Asher b'machshavto hakadusha, that when he thinks a holy thought, mamshich alav milamayla bechinat lavu, she's drawing down a garment for his soul. Velo tehei kavana almanat lekabel pras. You should never think about doing the commandments in order to receive a spiritual world reward, to go to heaven or whatever, because then he's thinking about himself. What should he think? That when he thinks a holy thought, then he is thinking about, he's making a garment that includes him, that it gives him the ability to be unified with God's oneness. If all the time he's doing the commandments, he's thinking about, well, I'm going to go to heaven because of this, right? This is really going to shoot me up there. I'm going to really get a big reward when I die. Then he's just thinking about himself. That's not a holy garment. That's a stained garment. Even though, listen, it's better he should do the Torah and the commandments and do good deeds because he's afraid to go to hell than he should do bad things. That's for sure. But still, you have to know that it's an infantile way of serving God, a selfish, infantile way. Good. I mean, if that's the only thing that'll stop you from stealing and robbing and who knows what, then okay. But you have to know that that's kindergarten stuff. This will always be his will. Not to separate from God's oneness. And also, you should think about what are the negative results of bad thoughts. And this we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow. Now, this is talking about, what are we saying? When a Jew does the commandments, says the commandments, thinks the commandments, it makes a garment. This garment draws down a blessing from God that is called a fragrance, reyach. And this is reach, this is hinting at Jericho, Jericho. And this has to be checked out. That's what Yoshua did before you can come into the Holy Land. And I just want to remind you again about this letter that someone sent to the Rebbe, and he said that he wants to go to, he lived in South Africa. He said he wants to go to the land of Israel. And he just wrote to the letter Rebbe for he was a Chabad Chassid. He was, or maybe he wasn't. He wrote to the Lubavitcher Rebbe for a blessing. And the Rebbe said, listen, it's not so simple that you should go to the land of Israel. Right? It's not like what they tell you. Every Jew has to go to Israel. You just, go there. That's all. It's just simple. Make aliyah. You got to make aliyah. The Rebbe said it's not so simple. The land of Israel is a holy place. In order to go there, you have to prepare yourself and elevate yourself holy. You can't just go there because you want a good job. You can't just go there because you want to bask in the sun, right? You can't go there because you want to escape the whatever it is, the anti-Semitism, something like that. Those are reasons. Okay, if that's the reason you go there, okay, what can you do? But you should know it's not the right reason. A reason a Jew is supposed to go to the land of Israel is because it's a holy place and it helps him to serve the creator of the universe and to fulfill his destiny as a Jew, to be in the land of Israel. In the end, only Meshiach is going to bring all the Jews to Israel. And he's going to do this by making them feel more Jewish and desire the commandments. They're not going to come here because the state of Israel says so, or because we have a good army or whatever it is, or there's nice conditions. That was one of the conditions that the Rebbe said. There were 3 other conditions, but it's not important now what they are. But the main thing is that the land of Israel is a holy place, and you have to really respect that holiness, and you have to prepare yourself for a holy experience. Purify yourself. And that also means getting rid of not good thoughts, speech, and action, especially thoughts. And we're going to talk about that more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's learn the Sikha of the Rebbe. Beautiful, amazing Sikha. Let's learn the Sikha. Take a 1-minute break.